I've been moved back into my own place for a few weeks now. And it's going.
The truth was undeniable. Tammy Slaton's suffering had generated millions for TLC. The network twisted her image, shortchanged her pay, and left her to endure the fallout of a show that nearly destroyed her. As weeks passed, Tammy began opening up more, first to family, then to friends, and eventually to a small circle of loyal supporters. Each time she spoke, her anger grew sharper. "They thought I was weak," she reportedly told one confidant. "They believed I'd never fight back because I was too sick, too tired, too desperate. But they don't know me. They don't know the fire inside me. I'd rather lose everything than let them win." Her private war with TLC was quickly becoming public scandal. Yet, while Tammy positioned herself as the victim of corporate exploitation, fans continued to watch her personal journey unfold on screen. Despite losing over £500 and earning approval for bariatric surgery in season 6, many viewers felt her behavior hadn't changed. Some applauded her progress and her ability to inspire others battling obesity. But others voiced frustration that Tammy often slipped back into old patterns: her sharp temper, her complaints, her volatile relationships. Social media split into camps, those rooting for Tammy's redemption and those exhausted by her perceived lack of growth. Tammy herself admitted to struggling. She revealed insecurities about excess skin, describing herself as a penguin because of how it affected her mobility. Yet she also concealed her continued vaping habit from doctors, insisting it helped her cope with anxiety. Critics saw it as self-sabotage, a way of jeopardizing her chance at further surgery. Family tensions added more fuel. Though Tammy's weight loss allowed her to gain independence, she often painted her relatives as unsupportive even as they had cared for her when she was bedridden. Jealousy, especially of Amy's success, crept into her words. Fans noticed how her tone turned dismissive or patronizing when discussing her sister's progress. For many, this overshadowed Tammy's physical achievements. Viewers who once cheered her transformation grew disillusioned, frustrated by what they saw as toddler-like tantrums and recurring bitterness. Even as she cultivated a following on Instagram and shared motivational messages, some felt their old Tammy was always waiting to resurface. In the end, Tammy's story remained tangled between triumph and turmoil. She had shed. 4 years, viewers of £1,000 Sisters have been captivated by the tumultuous lives of Amy and Tammy Slaton, two sisters from Kentucky who opened their lives to the cameras and became household names in the realm of reality television. Their struggles with obesity, their candid arguments, their emotional highs and devastating lows, and their very personal battles with health and identity were packaged into a story that drew millions of viewers and earned TLC a steady stream of ratings. They became symbols of perseverance, dysfunction, and spectacle all at once, their names plastered across tabloids and internet headlines, their faces instantly recognizable even to those who had never watched a full episode. But while audiences fixated on Amy and Tammy, another sister remained mostly in the background, drifting in and out of family scenes without ever being allowed to fully emerge as a central figure. That sister is Misty Slaton, and according to those closest to her, her absence from the spotlight was not by accident, not by personal choice, but by deliberate design. Her story, long suppressed and dismissed, is one of exclusion, betrayal, and silent suffering, a story that could fundamentally reshape how the public views not only the Slaton family but also the ruthless mechanics of reality television itself. Misty's invisibility has often been mistaken for disinterest, as though she chose to avoid the cameras and preferred to live a quiet life outside of public attention. But insiders claim this is far from the truth. From the very beginning, Misty allegedly wanted her narrative to be acknowledged, her perspective to be heard, and her struggles to be validated. She was, after all, part of the same family dynamic that gave rise to Amy and Tammy's on-screen drama, subject to the same chaotic household politics, the same upbringing, the same health challenges that defined the lives of her sisters. Yet, while the cameras swirled around Amy's pregnancies, Tammy's bariatric surgeries, and their constant sibling rivalries, Misty was often reduced to a background character, occasionally present in family meetings or dramatic confrontations but never granted more than a few fleeting lines of dialogue. It was, according to friends and alleged insiders, a conscious choice by both producers and her sisters, who understood that reality television thrives on extreme personalities, shocking transformations, and tear-jerking crises. Misty, by contrast, was seen as too calm, too measured, and not volatile enough to drive ratings. Her hardships were dismissed as not dramatic enough for prime time, leaving her to watch as her family's pain became profit while her own voice was silenced. This silencing, Misty reportedly confided to friends, cut deeper than audiences could imagine. 4 years, she sat on the sidelines, supporting her sisters when needed, appearing when producers wanted to stage a family gathering, but always excluded from meaningful storylines. Her health battles, her financial struggles, and her emotional wounds were all deemed unworthy of the narrative being sold to the public. And yet those struggles, according to people close to her, were no less real, no less agonizing, and no less defining of her life than the weight loss surgeries and shouting matches that captivated audiences. To be told repeatedly that her story wasn't compelling enough, as one alleged producer reportedly phrased it, was to be told that her humanity was insufficient for the manufactured reality that TLC wanted to portray. Misty, unlike her sisters, was not granted the opportunity to be messy on camera, to be redeemed, to be pitied or cheered. She was, instead, relegated to the margins, the invisible sister in a family whose dysfunction had become public entertainment. The betrayal, insiders insist, was not just about television time. It extended into finances, opportunities, and family dynamics that were quietly reshaped by fame and money. Amy and Tammy, as the undisputed stars of the show, were allegedly given control over how the family was portrayed and who received what share of the financial pie. With every season renewal, every sponsorship deal, every paid appearance, the sisters at the center grew wealthier and more powerful, while Misty, despite her occasional participation in filming, reportedly received little or no compensation. Friends close to her claim she would sometimes spend hours on set, providing emotional support during tense scenes or being filmed in the background, only to discover later that her efforts amounted to nothing in terms of payment or recognition. The discrepancy was staggering. While Amy and Tammy purchased homes, secured endorsements, and turned their notoriety into financial stability, Misty was left struggling to remain financially independent, often leaning on modest support systems while her siblings basked in fame. According to sources, this wasn't accidental. TLC contracts, already notoriously restrictive in the reality television industry, were allegedly crafted in a way that tied Misty's fate to her sister's approval. Unlike Amy and Tammy, who were positioned as the show's stars and given room to negotiate, Misty's contracts reportedly limited her ability to profit from her own likeness, her own story, or even independent promotional opportunities. If she wished to build her own brand or secure outside sponsorships, she allegedly had to obtain permission not only from TLC but also, in some cases, from her sisters themselves. This created a dynamic where Misty was financially shackled, dependent on the very people who, according to insiders, were deliberately sidelining her. It was a cruel irony. She was part of the Slayton family brand that had become marketable to millions, but her ability to reap the benefits of that brand was systematically suppressed. In effect, she became a silent extra in a show that profited off her family's dysfunction, a bystander to her own erasure. The emotional toll of this exclusion, friends say, was profound. Misty, who had long valued her private relationships and cherished a sense of loyalty to her family, began to feel increasingly isolated. Every new episode that aired, every tabloid cover featuring her sisters, every viral social media clip highlighting Amy's candor or Tammy's outbursts was a reminder of what she had been denied. Her silence in public, once mistaken for indifference, was reportedly a carefully calculated strategy to avoid further conflict. She weighed the consequences of speaking out, knowing that doing so might fracture her already strained relationships with her sisters or jeopardize what little presence she had left on the show. But behind closed doors, according to confidants, she expressed deep frustration, questioning why her life was considered less valuable, why her struggles were deemed less marketable, why she was made to feel invisible in a family narrative that was being broadcast to millions. Despite all of this, Misty has shown remarkable resilience. Friends say she has pursued her health journey quietly, making changes to her diet, undergoing treatments, and doing the hard work of reclaiming her life without the validation or support of cameras. Her persistence in the face of neglect highlights a strength that goes unrecognized precisely because it does not fit the mold of reality TV drama. It is the strength of someone who endures, who fights private battles without applause, who survives even when ignored. And now, according to those closest to her, Misty is ready to speak. She is prepared to share her story, not just the details of her health struggles, but the full breadth of her exclusion, from financial betrayal to narrative erasure to emotional isolation. If and when she does, the consequences could be profound. Her words could expose the calculated favoritism of TLC, the manipulative contracts that silenced her, the financial gatekeeping of her sisters, and the human cost of prioritizing drama over justice. Fans who have long adored Amy and Tammy may be forced to reconsider their perceptions, to grapple with the possibility that the stars they rooted for were complicit in sidelining their own sister. The Slayton family, portrayed for years as a chaotic but ultimately loyal unit, could instead be seen as fractured, divided by greed and betrayal. And TLC itself could face serious scrutiny not just for its treatment of Misty but for its broader practices of exploiting families, manipulating narratives, and profiting off pain. The possibility of legal repercussions also looms. If Misty can produce evidence that she was excluded from financial opportunities or bound by contracts that unfairly restricted her autonomy, she could potentially pursue claims of exploitation or unfair treatment. Even the threat of such action could send shockwaves through the franchise, forcing both the network and her sisters to confront the uncomfortable truths that have been hidden from the public. And beyond the legal and financial consequences lies the cultural impact of her story. Misty's revelations could challenge the very foundation of reality television, exposing the extent to which these shows manufacture reality, silence certain voices, and sacrifice human dignity for ratings. In the end, Misty's story is about far more than money or fame. It is about justice, recognition, and reclaiming agency in a system that deliberately undervalued her. It is about the emotional devastation of being told that your life is not dramatic enough to matter, that your struggles are unworthy of compassion, that your very existence is expendable in the pursuit of spectacle. It is about the betrayal of family, the complicity of sisters who benefited from your exclusion, and the ruthless indifference of a network that profited from your silence. Misty represents the forgotten narrative of 1,000-pound sisters, the story of the sibling who watched, endured, and fought in silence while others were celebrated, the sister whose resilience went unacknowledged, the woman who may now finally be ready to speak. If she does, her revelations will not only reshape the public's perception of the Slayton family but also serve as a searing indictment of reality television itself. They will highlight the cost of celebrity, the exploitation of families, the silencing of marginalized voices, and the profound human consequences of being excluded from one's own story. For Misty, the years of silence may finally give way to a voice that demands to be heard, a voice that could forever alter how fans, the network, and the wider world understand the Slaytons, and in doing so, expose the uncomfortable truths that reality TV has long tried to keep hidden.